Hello everybody, so as you may not know, or you may know, I am a bit of a John Green book enthusiast. I in fact, at one point, owned all of the books he'd released, and I made the mistake of loaning my copy of Paper Towns to somebody, and now I'm just sad. But I still have 2 hardbacks by him, 2 paperbacks by him, and 2 ebooks by him, encompassing all of the books that he has released as of filming this July 12, 2017. I'm ashamed to say I have not read his Bad Zombie novel as he described it himself, because I don't know where to find it. If you do, please tell me. But I thought a good easy video, since I'm currently reading the book for my next review, I would just sit down and I'd talk about the John Green books starting in order of release, and just, you know, go through, talk about them, maybe rate them, and have a good time. These reviews will also be spoiler free, and I will give you a spoiler warning and a timestamp to go to if I do. Which was actually banned because the first book that John Green released was Looking for Alaska. Fun facts with Booked. Actually, I believe the third John Green book that I read, probably my second favorite that he has released. It's put in this format
4 days before.
Of 28 this many days before. It just goes down the clock until you reach 1 day before, and then it switches to how many days after. I really enjoyed this book, especially as I was reading. I believe I read this the first time when I was probably 12 or 13. It features a main character who is obsessed with last words and famous people's last words. I actually bought a book of famous last words because of this novel. And it goes through his life and experiences at a boarding school, especially his experiences with this girl named Alaska. I'm gonna cut it off there because if I go much farther into it, I will end up giving you spoilers, but I will add an anecdote in exchange for my very limited summary on this novel. So, I'm a very clumsy person. One day I walked into a pool. It was so loud. It was in the middle of a career fair at my school. So I walk into this pool. I'm suffering from what people are genuinely concerned is a concussion. It was not a concussion, but the nursing staff actually wouldn't let me leave the building, no matter how many times I said that I was fine. So I had to go to the nursing staff. They analyzed me. They're like, okay, you're following our finger, you know, very well. Okay, you can go. And my friend and I spent the rest of the day making jokes with Catherine. This is my favorite book he has released. Okay, so the next book by John Green is It's one of his less popular ones. You don't really hear a lot of people saying like, I want an Abundance of Catherine's movie. But I adored this book. It is about a young child prodigy who grew up and has to deal with life after being, you know, a child prodigy and no longer being considered talented or gifted in these areas, and him going on a road trip with his friend. Now the reason it is titled An Abundance of Catherine is because this main character exclusively dates girls named Catherine. And John Green books, a pretty cool thing that happens a lot is they do cool things with the format
in the bottom where you got cool little bits of information.
Well, in this case, they did footnotes. I believe this is entirely underrated and so few people talk about it, but it deserves so much more recognition. Now I'm going to talk about Paper Towns. I will put a picture of the cover right here since I do not have my paper copy of me anymore because I loaned it out to somebody and I kind of never got it back. But Paper Towns is the one that you might have heard some more buzz about recently. It was the one that was really recently turned into a movie, which I sadly have not watched yet. But I'm gonna get around to it eventually, I think. But it is about this boy and his childhood friend who is always the, oh, she really did that type of girl, and her going off and disappearing and running away and him having to try and track her down. Now, a lot of people do have a lot of complaints about this book, saying that it's not really how teenagers talk, or that it is extremely unrealistic. A lot of big complaints that it's very, you know, pseudo-philosophy. I've heard a lot of people be upset about the main character, specifically that she isn't very well developed, that she's very much a idolized character, and honestly I do have to say I believe that's completely incorrect and that's a complete misunderstanding of the story, because the main theme behind the book, which I think is also important to recognize with all of these books, is perspective versus how people actually are. Okay, so John Green did release 2 more books before he released this book. I'm going to talk about his collaboration books in just a second. The next book is The quintessential John Green novel. If you don't know a lot about John Green, you haven't really looked into his stuff, you probably have at least heard The Fault in Our Stars. It was a huge deal a few years ago. The movie came out, I cried my eyes out. I watched it with a friend. It was a whole experience. Who has terminal Fault in Our Stars, if you didn't know, is about a girl who's had it for years, and her experiences with that and going with her friend to his Make-A-Wish in Amsterdam. And then spoilers happen, but it is very good. It is incredibly sad. Most of the John Green novels are sad on some level and terrible. Mom came into my room and gave me cake because she heard me crying. Like, it was bad. However, I do still love this. It touches on a lot of really cool subjects, and while it does tear your heart out, I've reread it so many times.